Okay, you can go.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, class. Today, my group would be presenting on chapter six, sorry, and my group consists of Trisha Budram, Paige Jennings, and myself, Denise Braffett. We will be presenting on chapter nine, exploring leadership and being in the communities. Before we delve into the chapter, we'll give you a brief introduction. Community leadership is deeply connected to the mutual relationship of the individual and the group. They are complementary, and their interaction brings the nature of leaders trying to provide service to the community. In the pages that follow, we embark on a journey of exploration and discovery, delving into the multifaceted realm of this chapter that speaks to being in communities. On a fundamental level, we try to decipher the essence of leadership in the small scale mosaic, which is composed of social ties, shared values, and common dreams woven inside it. We enter a voyage of understanding the main idea of leadership, not as a secluded labor, but rather as a vitally correlated function of the community. What is a community? We all live in communities. Some may say good, some may say bad, some don't even know what's the status of their community. But if we Google it, we will get more or less the same definition of a community. A community is an essential aspect for fostering social connections among the residents, the different persons that pass through the community, whether long term or short term, providing support systems for each other, preserving culture, and promoting well being and prosperity for their members. The members being the persons that reside within that community. So it is important because it provides social support and fosters a sense of belonging. It facilitates local governance. It helps drive the economic development, and it enhances individual health and well being. Relationships that you will form with your neighbors, not necessarily across the road or next door, it could be a neighbor around the corner. Thus, communities serve as building blocks of society, enriching the lives of their members and contributing, to a greater good. The importance of community. Again, before we get into the meat of the chapter, let's give you a scenario. Denise, coincidentally, not this Denise, but another Denise, is a dedicated member of her commencement committee in her community. However, she falls ill and she's at home battling the flu. Unable to attend one of her committee meetings, she sits at home and laments about not being able to while her phone rings. Strange enough to her, on the other end is a fellow community member, Jason, who also has an earshot of his conversation, Stacy and Carl. They are all concerned colleagues from in the committee of the community. In this moment, amidst her illness, Denise sees where the essence of community is in action. What that phone call did for her is demonstrated the strength of community bonds. So even though she was sick at home, her community members still showed her they cared by reaching out to her after recognizing she would have been absent from the meeting. The members of the committee, which included Jason, Stacy, and Carl, displayed a strong sense of community and care for each other by placing that simple phone call. They noticed her absence, and expressed genuine concern for her well-being. Jason's call wasn't merely a gesture of politeness. It was a lifeline of care extended from one member of the community to another. Through their expressions of concern and offers of support, Jason, Stacy, and Carl exemplify the interconnectedness and empathy that define a healthy community. What does that mean? That means that a reflection of supportive environment was shown when they made that phone call reaching out to Denise. And as a result, she felt supported and valued within her committee and her community. So despite her absence, the committee members reached out to check on her and offered assistance. It also showed the existence of communication and collaboration, which is also evident as the committee members communicate effectively to ensure her needs are met, where Stacy would have offered, to drop off materials and asking her if she needed anything else. Denise's experience highlights a universal truth that within the fabric of a community lies a profound sense of belonging and support. So just excuse me 1 minute to take a sip of water, please. Sorry about that. Denise's experience highlights a universal truth that within the fabric of a community lies a profound sense of belonging and support. Whether it is a small committee or a larger societal context, the bonds forged within a community are a source of strength and resilience in times of need. Denise's interaction with the committee reaffirmed her sense of belonging within the community. She realized that she mattered to the group and they fostered a positive atmosphere. Someone like her having a sense of belonging in the community helps other individuals develop a stronger sense of identity. Therefore, what this is saying, by being a part of a group with shared values, beliefs, and experiences, individuals can better understand who they are, where they fit in, and within the larger social context of their community. Denise's story served as a microcosm of the broader tapestry of human connection and solidarity. From families, if we refer to the text and the chapter, we would have seen where they spoke of families who opened their doors to strangers in the aftermath of hurricanes and colleges that provided refuge for displaced students, and history replete with examples of communities rallying together in times of crisis. If we look right here in Trinidad, we would have seen that in the case when there was this major flood in Greenville, where persons would have allowed others to stay by them because so many homes there were flooded. We even see it in times when houses burn, where neighbors accommodate those who would have been affected by the burnt house. So this narrative is extending beyond the committee to illustrate how communities can come together in times of crises and emphasize the importance of mutual support and solidarity. Many communities are united by common goals, purpose, or objectives that they strive to achieve together, whether it is advancing a cause, pursuing shared interests, or addressing common challenges. These collective aspirations bring members together, and foster collaboration. From this scenario, we can conclude a number of things about a community. We can conclude that the broader reflection on the nature of the community underscores the profound impact that communities can have, not only on an individual level, but on a larger scale. Because we saw the impact not just on Denise, but also on her fellow committee members who are also members of the community. The examples provided, such as families opening their homes during the different and collective response to national tragedies, illustrate the resilience and unity that communities can exhibit in times of adversity. In essence, this interaction and the broader reflection emphasize the significance of communities in fostering care, support, and unity, showcasing their ability to make individuals feel valued and to collectively overcome challenges. The importance of community. As we move on from this scenario, we now delve into understanding the importance of community. And according to the Exploring Leadership text by Comis, Lucas, and McMahon, it explains to us that the concept of community, believing its inherent value, and possessing the skills to cultivate and maintain community ties are fundamental components of relational leadership. What this is saying to us is, or rather, it's emphasizing that relational leadership relies heavily on understanding. They can't exist without each other. We also need valuing and active engagement within the concept of community in order for things to work well. We also need to possess the skills needed to cultivate and maintain strong community ties. So, with that, we cannot have one neighbor not talking to the next one and a neighbor not talking to the next one, yet still they're trying to come together. It will never work. It would operate as two magnets operating on the negative side, pushing away each other. It's important to acknowledge that while we may aspire to idolize notions of the community, the reality is all communities are imperfectly perfect. And if we look within our own country or even our own community, we will see that. This statement basically underscores the importance of recognizing and accepting the imperfections of our communities. It suggests that rather than striving for unattainable perfection, it will be better to try and be productive and acknowledge and work with the complexities of the communities and the dynamics that exist. If that is done, what we will have, individuals and groups will be better able to navigate challenges, and foster better relationships, growths, and improvement within the said communities. Even imperfect communities have the potential to evolve into supportive environments that foster both individual and collective growth. What this is saying to us is despite the imperfections that we just spoke about, communities can still possess the capacity to transform into nurturing environments that facilitate the development and advancement of not just the residents, but groups that may come about in the community. Imperfect communities are merely communities characterized by flaws, shortcomings, conflicts, and other challenges. They may not fully meet the idealized expectations of what a community should be. And again, if we look right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have the Sealots, the Beatums, the Laventils. We all know the stigma that surrounds these communities. But the text further shows us that there's potential for evolution. So despite these imperfections, these communities are not static entities. We have seen where they have the ability to change, adapt, and grow over time. If we look at Kareem Marcel, the lawyer coming out of Beatum, he has not 100% positive coming out from his background because he would have run-ins with the law where he would have gone through experiences, but he persevered through it all and he's a lawyer. We have Morris Aberdeen, who is a loctician and an actor coming out of the hills of Laventille, living in the United States, doing well. So we are seeing here it is obvious and it is evident that out of negative can come positive. So this is merely proving to us that even communities facing difficulties or setbacks can overcome them and progress toward becoming more supportive environments. The goal is for communities to transition into environments that provide encouragement, assistance, and resources for both individual members and the collective group. This could involve fostering a sense of belonging, just like what Denise experienced, offering opportunities for personal development, or creating spaces for collaboration and mutual support. With this, by evolving into supportive environments, communities can enable individuals to thrive and reach their full potential. Additionally, collective growth occurs as the community as a whole becomes stronger, more resilient, and better equipped to address shared challenges and pursue common goals. As the saying goes, strength is in numbers. So it may not have been the outcome many persons expected or anticipated, but if we look at when we have communities that are affected by crime, we see the togetherness taking place. Unfortunately, if we look at the tragedy happening in Port of Spain on Saturday, the residents have now come together after 9 persons being shot, and they have created their own security system by blocking the entrance to the residential area or the community, where they are now trying to protect themselves from further carnage. The second paragraph of this chapter underscores the importance of community while exploring the significance of community building skills in contemporary leadership, particularly within the framework of relational leadership. Based on this, we could further discuss what Ghana of 1990 emphasized. What was said is the proficiency in building and rebuilding communities is not just one of many leadership requirements, but rather one of the highest and most essential skills a leader can possess. This assertion underscores the critical role that community building plays in effective leadership, suggesting that leaders who excel in this skill are better equipped to navigate the complexities of modern organizational dynamics. This paragraph also introduced the concept of treating community building as a discipline within the context of relational leadership. This means that community building is not simply a task to be carried out, but rather a concept to be studied, learned, and practiced systematically, akin to academic disciplines like biology, English, or history. This framing emphasizes the importance of intentional effort and continuous learning in developing community building skills. Understanding the context in which relationships within a group or an organization function is important. What we are suggesting here is that effective leadership involves not only understanding yourself as an individual, but others, and also creating the nurturing of the environment, which would be the community in this instance, in which the relationships thrive. This understanding is essential for fostering collaboration, trust, and mutual support among the community members. Basically, what that just said is even though you may be neighbors with someone, in order for you all to effectively work for the better good of the community, there must be trust. You all must be willing to support each other, and there must be collaboration. As the saying goes, there is no I in team. So, what we are looking for in communities with this is teamwork. By framing these relationships within a group or an organization as a community, participants or residents are encouraged to focus on their responsibilities, the processes of interaction, and the collective spirit of working together. This perspective fosters a sense of shared ownership and commitment to the group's goals and values, thereby enhancing cohesion and effectiveness. In summary, this paragraph underscores the paramount importance of community building skills in contemporary leadership, emphasizing the need to approach community building as a disciplined practice. By understanding and nurturing the context in which relationships operate, leaders can cultivate environments that promote collaboration, innovation, and collective achievement within their organizations or groups. As we explore the last paragraph of chapter 9, you'll be prompted to reflect on your personal experiences within your groups, in your communities, or the settings that exist, contrasting those characterized by a sense of commitment, belonging, and mutual significance with those lacking such qualities. If you read the chapter, you'll recall experiences within classes, clubs, committees, or groups where you would have felt deeply connected and committed to the collective goals. In settings like that, individuals would have likely felt valued, respected, and essential to the group's success. These groups foster a sense of camaraderie and purpose, enhancing overall satisfaction and productivity among members. Acknowledging that not all groups evoke feelings of commitment and significance, the paragraph reflects the diverse range of interpersonal dynamics present in group settings. Some groups may lack cohesion or shared purpose, leading to feelings of disengagement or dissatisfaction among members. Despite achieving their objectives, these groups may not foster enjoyable or fulfilling experiences for participants. The paragraph also introduces the concept of relational leadership, which emphasizes the importance of envisioning group contexts as healthy communities. This approach encourages leaders to prioritize relationship building, communication, and collaboration within their teams, fostering a sense of belonging and shared responsibility among members. By embracing a relational leadership mindset, groups can establish norms and expectations conducive to effective teamwork and shared leadership. By reframing group contexts as healthy communities, relational leadership introduces a paradigm shift in how groups operate. Rather than focusing solely on task accomplishment, Emphasis is placed on cultivating supportive relationships and fostering a sense of belonging and mutual respect among members. This approach enhances trust, cooperation, and innovation within groups, ultimately leading to more meaningful and sustainable outcomes. To sum up all of that, basically what is being said, without teamwork, without collectiveness, without cooperation and innovation, the groups within the community will not be able to be successful and move forward. Overall, this part of the chapter emphasizes the importance of understanding the concept of community and its application in leadership. It highlighted that building and nurturing communities are essential skills for effective leadership. It showed us that relational leadership calls for treating community building as a discipline akin to academic subjects and stresses the significance of creating a supportive context for group or, or, or organizational functioning. It urges individuals to consider their experiences in groups, noting the stark contrast between those characterized by a sense of belonging and commitment versus those lacking such qualities. It also showed us how relational leadership encourages envisioning group settings as healthy communities, fostering the expectations and norms conducive to effective collaboration and shared leadership. I'll now pass you over to my team member, Paige Jennings, who will go through the part of the chapter that speaks to elements of the community.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I will be presenting on elements of communities. As human beings, we need a sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging is what connects us to many relationships we develop. In this chapter, we will explore the elements of communities and the factors that influence them as well as their advantages and disadvantages. Next slide. What is a community? A community is most often described as a social group that not only shares an identity and structured pattern of interaction, but also a common geographical territory. It can also be described as a particular area or place considered together with its inhabitants, a body of nations or states. Previous slide, Denise. Next. Yes, this one, thanks. Sorry about that, class. A body of nations or states unified by common interests, or a group of people living together and practicing common ownership. Examples are race, ideology, and class. Next slide. What makes a community? Communities are a collection of individuals who accomplish their goals through trust and teamwork. Teamwork requires processes to make decisions, methods of communication, and a commitment to some level of participation by community members. Effective communities practice these 8 elements: wholeness incorporating diversity, a shared culture, good internal communication, caring, trust, and teamwork, group maintenance and governance, participation and shared leadership tasks, development of young people or new members, and links with the outside world. Next slide. What is wholeness incorporating diversity? This can be seen in many ways. Not only are we all from different areas, we have different lives and we were only brought together by one common interest. For example, leadership and ethics at COSTAD. With diversity within our team, we have been able to learn from each other and grow as members and leaders. The diversity of our background has given each and one of us a piece of the team, and without one piece of a team, we do not feel whole. We have thus created a team bond that gives us a feeling of importance to our community. Next slide. What is a shared culture? A shared culture relates to social networks that grow informally within a region and have their goal to co-produce, manage, and share resources, time, services, knowledge, information, and support based on solidarity rather than economic profit. It can also be defined as shared experiences of a durable group. Culture never occurs in isolation and is a product of social interaction. Types of cultures. Below are some examples of cultures. Global culture. That is culture that exists on a global level. For example, the culture of a popular sport, such as football, that gives people from multiple countries shared experiences, symbols, and meaning. This is also known as a superculture. For example, if you have a favorite football team, whether it be Man U or Chelsea or whatever you guys may have as a favorite team. National culture. The culture of a nation, such as traditions associated with national holidays. Most residents of a nation share culture with each other at this level. For example, we have spiritual Baptist Shelter Day, we have Diwali, we have Eid al-Fitr, different holidays that we associate with. Next, ethnicity culture. Ethnicity is the cultural identity of a group. This shouldn't be confused with race, but it does relate to how people identify with others as being in the same culture. For example, African, Asian, Indian. Next slide. These are some other examples of cultures. Socioeconomic culture. People may have much in common based on their socioeconomic class, such as working class, middle class, bourgeoisie, and upper class that creates different cultures amongst these groups. For example, language and norms may differ between the working class and the upper class. Next, we're looking at city culture. Shared meaning and experiences that emerge in a city, such as cosmopolitan city that has distinctive language, foods, and events that gives residents shared culture. For example, living in the state of New York or whether it be Texas, wherever it have different experiences, different language, different slangs that create that shared culture between individuals. Next, we have neighborhood culture. Some neighborhoods, have a strong culture. For example, a neighborhood that celebrates local festivals and holiday traditions with high participation amongst neighbors. For example, Pagua Holy, like I mentioned before, Spiritual Baptist Shelter Day, and Tobago Heritage Festival. Next slide. Then we have school culture. This is culture that associates with the honor system, that instills students with the sense that they are trusted to do the right thing. For example, being on the honor roll in school. Then we have youth culture. Youth culture typically forges that culture that differs from those of older generation. This tends to give people at a simple age shared culture. For example, Generation X tend to have a strong sense of independence and self-direction due to common experiences in youth. Then we're looking at organizational culture. Culture of organizations and teams, such as a team that has a culture of freedom and high performance, such that contributors are expected to uh, deliver a high volume of work, but can manage their time as they see fit. For example, where I work in finance, everyone works individually. We do a high volume of work, but we are allowed certain level of flexibility. Whereas we get to work remotely on certain days, or if we are sick, we could call in and say we don't have to come to the office. We could take the time off accordingly. So once you perform, you have flexibility to manage your time as you see fit. Then we have subculture. Culture at a relatively small scale, such as culture attached to a hobby or interest. For example, um, I did Scrabble. I was a part of a Scrabble group in school, and then there was this pro-life club, which was helping teenage girls with teenage pregnancies, providing them with all sorts of products and whatever they would have needed then. Next slide. Good internal communication. What is communication? Communication can be described as imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other mediums. Good internal communication is key to a successful community. Without communication, team members, employees, co-workers find it difficult to cope with situations, which in turn cause a lot of tension, as feelings and emotions are left unsaid and unheard. Without communication, there's little room for intervention and change. For example, if you have a issue on your job and you don't communicate with your manager or your supervisor, what's bothering you, they can't really help you. If you don't reach out to them and, impart that issue or whatever it is that you may be going through, that they can help you, caring and trust, caring, trust, and teamwork. For example, this is so important when being in a community. You have to look out for one another. Good communication brings caring, trust, and teamwork. For example, I'm looking out for a coworker by properly communicating policies and procedures of the workplace. Like if a new employee comes on board, you don't just lead them astray. If they are part of your department, you will look out for them and tell them the do's and don'ts of being on the job. Or a manager showing appreciation for a team by completing a project on time. For example, audit. If you're in finance, completing an audit is something that is so huge, right? And for example, where I work, they would take time off after the audit is completed to take everyone to lunch and show appreciation in that aspect. Next slide. Group maintenance and governance. What is group maintenance? This can be described as practice undertaken by group members in order to ensure the effective functioning of the group on an interpersonal level. This activity is distinct from activities undertaken to achieve the group's task and relates to ensuring good relations within the group. For example, ensuring everyone feels that they are a valued member. According to Meredith Belbin, some people are better equipped to take on group maintenance activity, and ideally, all groups should have at least one member who can ensure the smooth functioning of the group. Group maintenance contributes to levels of trust, cooperation, and understanding, and can be achieved by ensuring everyone has the opportunity to contribute and be listened to, encouraging group members and providing positive feedback, resolving conflict between group members, and recognizing the feelings of members. Next slide. What is governance? Governance looks at a team from the outside, treating it as a system that needs to have the appropriate structure and processes in place to provide a stream of value. Community governance include principles of transparency, accountability, and security. Poor community governance at best leads to high out-of-pocket expenditure, erosion of trust in the system, reduced service utilization, and poor economic growth. Next slide. Participation and shared leadership task. What is participation in a community? Community participation can be defined as the involvement of people in a community in projects to solve their own problems. It refers to the engagement of community members in various aspects of decision making, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation processes. For example, volunteer work, like cleaning up your community, cleaning up the areas where it have garbage, or um taking care of the, how to put it, the scenery where it have like trees and so on, like neatening up the plants, whether it be painting of the concrete benches in the park, community gardening, like I mentioned, and also tutoring, like providing that help for um, children in your area who may have need tutoring in certain subjects. Next slide. What is shared leadership? Shared leadership is more of a collaborative effort. One person is still in charge, but power and influence are shared within the group. This could mean individuals have more autonomy over decisions related to their positions, or an open door policy where everyone's ideas are given fair consideration. Example is a Supreme Court. All the members of the court share leadership responsibilities, while one person serves as a Chief Justice. Next slide. Development of young people or new members. We're looking at youth engagement. Youth engagement in community development and well-being is crucial for building a thriving society. Young people possess unique perspective, energies, and creativity that can drive positive change. By involving youth in decision-making processes, their needs, concerns, and aspirations can be effectively addressed, leading to more inclusive and sustainable development. Um, for example, giving every youth a chance to see how they feel, or voice their opinions instead of taking that autocratic approach where their opinions don't matter. Youth involvement. This fosters a sense of ownership and belonging amongst individuals towards their communities. Young people develop a stronger connection and attachment to their surroundings when actively engaged. This sense of belonging promotes community pride and encourages them to take an active role in improving their well-being, the well-being of their neighborhoods. Next slide. Youth participation in community development empowers them to become agents of change. When given opportunities to contribute their ideas and skills, young people gain confidence, leadership abilities, and a sense of responsibility. In addition, they learn valuable life skills such as teamwork, problem solving, and communication, essential for personal growth and future success. By involving by involving youth in decision-making processes, communities benefit from fresh perspectives and innovative ideas. Young people often bring new insights, creativity, and a willingness to change existing norms. In addition, their unique experiences and diverse backgrounds enable them to identify and address emerging issues, ensuring that community development strategies remain relevant and effective. Next slide. Youth involvement also helps to bridge intergenerational gaps within communities. Mutual understanding and respect are cultivated by fostering meaningful interaction and collaboration between different age groups. Older community members can share their wisdom and experience, while young people bring new knowledge and perspectives, fostering a sense of unity and interdependence. Involving youth in community development initiatives nurtures a culture of civic engagement and active citizenship. Young individuals develop a sense of social responsibility by participating in community projects, volunteering, and advocating for important causes. They learn the value of contributing to the common good and become more engaged and informed citizens. Next slide. Ultimately, the involvement of youth in the development and well-being of their communities ensures the sustainability and continuity of progress. We can create a more inclusive, dynamic, and prosperous society by empowering young people to become active contributors. Recognizing and harnessing the potential of a youth is a strategic investment in building a better future for generations to come. Volunteering is an excellent place to start if you aren't sure how to begin getting youth involved in the community. Next slide. Links with the outside world. One of the most powerful educational tools at our disposal is already available to us, our communities. All around us every day are groups of people with unique expertise, different life experiences, and lessons that every child could benefit from. However, schools often act separately from communities in which they are based. and often these valuables and free of charge resources are laid to waste. By involving our communities in the educational process, we give children real world learning opportunities, which makes learning more memorable and impactful, as they can see a reason as to why they're learning what you're teaching. Next slide. Motivational issues occur when young people see little attachment between school and their outside lives. Connecting the dots for the students, therefore, can increase their motivation, improve their memory recollection, and hopefully go on to improve their grades. Sharing capabilities and expertise can help to address inequalities within our education system too. Linking children to their wider communities can help show children what else they could be outside of their own social circles and expose them to careers that they may otherwise not know about. This particularly this is particularly relevant to today's world as the job market has changed drastically over the last couple of decades, and many parents may not know the kinds of careers that are that are open to their children today. Next slide. Through connecting different learning experiences that can happen outside of school, there are lots of activities that help students to gain new knowledge, skills, and capabilities, including revealing to them new careers and opportunities. Connecting children with their local communities can also help them positively affect change in their own personal lives, including their physical and mental health. For example, extracurricular activities. If you want to take part in swimming, if you want to take part in the chess club, um, football, tennis, basketball, anything. It will open your mind and your mental health to so much different possibilities that you could achieve anything you put your mind to. Learning happens all of the time and is not confined to the hours of a school day. Those schools can be at the heart of a local community by Joanna Rhodes. Next slide. What is diversity in communities? The concept of diversity encompasses acceptance and respect for the full range of human characteristics in their socio-ecological, historical, and cultural contexts, as well as understanding that each individual, family, community, and a societal group has uniqueness that make them different from others. These differences include but are not limited to age, ethnicity, class, gender, disability, sorry, disability, physical abilities, qualities, race, sexual orientation, as well as religious status, educational background, geographical location, income, language, marital status, parental status, trauma exposure, and work experiences. Next slide. Diversity is an ethical principle that means more than just acknowledging and or tolerating difference. It's an active appreciation and affirmation that individuals and communities deserve to be recognized in their uniqueness and differences. By making differences visible, we are able to see, nurture, and utilize the strengths of all persons. It is additionally important to support and protect diversity because by valuing differences, we foster a climate where equity and mutual respect are promoted and where dehumanization and oppression are incompatible. Next slide. Traditional views and spirit of the community. Through their work together, community members develop a shared culture that is concerned about new members. Effective communities realize that they are not only insular, but are a constant dynamic interaction with their broader environment. Binding all of this together is the awareness that a group is a community. The shared culture may reflect the spirit of a community, the spirit of, excuse, the shared culture may reflect that spirit of community. Traditional views of a community is that is a group of people that have something in common, whether it be ideology, race, or class, but there are more elements that contribute to what a community is. A true community cannot exist without diversity. This is by Cody Kunst, 1991, page 146. Diversity of ideas, diversity of skills, diversity of experiences, and diversity of world views bring to a group shared goals, the many talent of people gathered as a community. Next slide. Communities need face-to-face interaction. This is possible only through close geographic proximity. However, the term community also describes those with common identity and interaction, but without geographic proximity. For example, the medical community or the spiritual community. Next slide. Electronic networks. This has provided a creative way for communities of common interest to interact. This instills that sense of closeness in individuals, knowing that they can simply reach out to one another through these mediums. For example, internet chat rooms, blogs, message boards, online discussion groups, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. Sometimes it's easier to reach out to someone um, if we're not close to them, but via WhatsApp, get them a WhatsApp call or message them on Facebook to say hi if they're in the next country. Um, while it is good to know that electronic networks bring a sense of closeness, it should be also taken into consideration that it may lead to isolation and loneliness for others. For example, when we had the pandemic, and everyone was basically in isolation, quarantine, and we didn't have that human interaction. Yes, we could have interacted with each other via, phone or give a call, but a lot of people suffered with depression at that point in time because of that isolation. Next slide. What is the spirit of the community? Community spirit finds expression in individuals or group activities in which members of a community choose to engage for the benefit of that community. These activities may be locally organized or informal and spontaneous. This is apparent as a community fair, a school fete, charitable events, or even putting together a team of volunteers to walk through local streets and clear rubbish. It is associated with voluntary work, favors, and gestures of goodwill by residents and local businesses. For example, um, in certain communities, they have those little shelves, like when you walk into a particular grocery, and it would say, take something and leave something. And it's only found in certain areas, right? That is one of a community act, I would say, to show that you care about your neighbor. Next slide. A common center. In his 1958 classic, I and Thou, Martin Buber contends that in our life together, some form of community is what makes life worth living. He describes community as a group of people who have made a choice around a common center. A true community is not a collection of people who all think alike, but people with different minds and complementary natures. Developing communities like this on the relational leadership that deeply values the inclusion of all members, empowered to work together toward common purposes. Communities are the mirrors in which we see our true self by Hesselbein, Goldsmith, Becker, and Schubert, 1998. Next slide. Communities of practice. What is a community of practice? This is a group of people who share common concern, a set of problems or an interest in a topic, and who come together to fulfill both individual and group goals. This focuses on sharing best practices and creating new knowledge to advance a domain of professional practice. Interaction on an ongoing basis is an important part of this. Many communities rely on face-to-face meetings as well as web-based collaborative environments to communicate, connect, and conduct community activities. Next slide. What are the characteristics of a community of practice? This can be placed into three categories. 1, domain, 2, community, and 3, practice. Next slide. What is domain? Community members have a shared domain interest, competence, and commitment that distinguishes them from others. This shared domain creates common ground, inspires members to participate, guides their learning, and gives meaning to their actions. Community. Members pursue this interest through joint activities, discussions, problem-solving opportunities, information sharing, and relationship building. The notion of a community creates the social fabric for enabling collective learning. A strong community fosters interaction and encourages a willingness to share ideas. Practice. Community members are actual practitioners in this domain of interest and build a shared repertoire of resources and ideas that they take back to their practice. While the domain provides the general area of interest for the community, the practice is a specific focus around which the community develops, shares, and maintains its core of collective value. Next slide. Types of communities of practice. Communities of practice are increasingly being used to improve knowledge management and connect people with business, government, education, and other organizations. The design of the community will look different depending on the purpose and needs of the participants. There are 4 basic types of communities. 1, open communities. They provide a forum for community members to help each other with everyday work needs. 2, best practice communities. They develop and disseminate best practices, guidelines, and strategies for their members' use. 3, knowledge stewarding communities. Organize, manage, and steward a body of knowledge from which community members can draw. And 4, innovation communities. They create breakthrough ideas, new knowledge, and new practices. Next slide. Why communities of practice are important. According to Wenger 1998, communities of practice provide 5 critical functions. 1, they educate by collecting and sharing information related to questions and issues of practice. 2, support by organizing interactions and collaboration among members. 3, cultivate by assisting groups to start and sustain their learning. 4, encourage by promoting the work of their members through discussion and sharing. And 5, integrate by encouraging members to use their knowledge for real change in their own work. Communities of practice are important as a professional learning strategy because they have the potential to connect people, provide a shared context, enable dialogue, stimulate learning, introduce collaborative processes, and help people organize. Next slide. Now put you over to my colleague Trisha.
Hi, good night, sir. Good night, everyone. So I will be doing the development of community. So as we know, communities are always changing. They are not static, nor do they remain the same. As part of the chapter, we will look at community development stages, their principles of building, college communities, and their different organizations. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so what is the development of a community? Community development is usually a process where individuals of a group or people in a community come together to create stronger and more connected bonds or relationships within that community. Community development does not happen overnight, and it usually requires a lot of effort. The development of a spirit of community must happen intentionally. This helps to take collective actions and generate solutions to common problems. It helps us to also develop a sense of identity. This in turn will also improve the quality of life in the community. So basically, my colleagues and I, Denise and Paige, we are basically a community, right? We are in a group. And in order for us to to do this project and get everything done, we needed to put the effort and the dedication and the amount of hours we took to read the success of the presentation. So that's basically what the development of the community means. It's something that's supposed to be positive. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are 4 stages in community development. So there was a man by the name of Scott Peck. He was an American psychiatrist who studied community development, and he observed 4 stages in developing a strong community. So the picture that we see here is a summary model of Scott Peck's stages in community development. These are also the stages of community building that are used in community building workshops. So the 4 stages are pseudo-community, chaos, emptiness, and true community. Next slide. So pseudo-community. This is basically the first and early formation stage in the Scott Peck model. Pseudo-community is defined as a group of people who appears to be a community but have no connections, no interactions. And even if they do have interactions, it's fake interactions, right? Their personal or cultural differences are not recognized nor valued. And this stage is usually considered conflict avoiding versus conflict resolving. Conflict avoiding is superficial and it's underdevelopment. It's lack of communication, so little to no communication. In this stage, within the community, things may feel fine or normal within the group. However, individuals just tolerate each other, but don't say when they are about to have conflicts with others. And this is not considered true community development. So for example, let's use the group project as an example. We are peers working together on a topic, but we all have different views and we all have different opinions. And sometimes in the early stages of the community where I have an opinion, I don't want to hear my colleague's opinion or her idea. And likewise with her, she may not want to hear mine or somebody else's. And this is where we try to avoid conflict and we have little communication and we don't interact and we don't resolve those issues. We just remain there and we try to avoid it. And we don't end up moving forward and we don't find a common solution. But this is just the first stage in community development, and now we will be moving on to chaos. Next slide, please. So, chaos is the second and most crucial stage of community development. Chaos occurs when members of the community are free to speak their mind, giving vent to their mutual disagreements and differences. So eventually, as we spoke about in pseudo community, where we have different opinions and different views, we may not speak about it, but eventually our differences must come to the surface. It must arise, and here's where this happens. So this usually happens trying to discuss the community's agenda, determine important processes, or simply suggesting ideas. Members begin to speak out on a confrontational level about their differences or problems. So there's no sympathy and no concern for each other's opinions or ideas or the way in which they speak to each other. So everything now is confrontational. This is the phase where the community eventually realizes that differences cannot be overlooked or ignored. Some choose to give up or divert the attention. However, fighting is better than ignoring the situation altogether. So, for example, again, the group project, right? So our members speak their mind without sympathy. We have no concerns, no cares for each other's opinions or ideas. The arguments will arise, and we would not want to be in chaos. We don't want to be in an argument. So some of us may feel they need to leave. Me or Denise or Paige, if we have a disagreement and we can't speak to each other properly, or have an understanding of each other's opinion, one of us may want to leave. And or we may just totally give up and go back to the community where we remain quiet and the issue is not resolved. So moving on to the third stage. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so we have emptiness, right? So this is the third stage in community development. In Peck's model, he observed that communities take one of two directions from chaos. So we have organization or emptiness. Now, organization allows decisions to be made on voting and letting the majority rule, but the tension may still be there. This basically means that um, from all our differences and after chaos have happened and we can't come to an agreement, somebody, probably the leader or somebody higher in the community, or maybe some of the peers may come to a decision that we have a voting, and whoever votes for this idea will usually be the one to rule. But we have the other colleagues where they feel like they feel left out, or they feel like they don't have a say, or their opinion did not matter, and there will still be tensions rising, and in turn it could get worse. So here's where we move on to emptiness. So emptiness is the bridge that leads to true community. All barriers that kept individuals from being honest and having meaningful conversations or communications have been removed. The realization of their initial assumptions, ideas, stereotypes, or motives were barriers in listening and understanding, and being understood in return. So, um, I respect your opinion, you respect my opinion in the group, and we discuss and we talk it out. It is a form of genuine communication after the chaos, and the individual's ego is no longer present. Members empty their full emotion and personal feelings towards the situation and compromise or gain mutual understanding. Hence the reason for the stage emptiness, because emptiness is where everything is almost to result. Whereas over organization you would still have a decision, but at what sacrifice to all the members of the group. There would still be tension. So emptiness is a third stage. Moving on, next slide. So here, lastly, we have true community. This is the fourth stage in community development. In this stage, everyone still has their opinions and strong beliefs, but eventually comes to the realization that by working together, teamwork can be done and everyone can move forward with their task at hand. The thinking outside the box mentality is established, and this is where open-minded values and established orders come into play. Taking into consideration both the good and bad opinions strengthens the group as one. Spirit and eager volunteerism would emerge with a huge sense of respect for one another. So the problem is basically resolved. If my colleague Denise or Paige had an issue and we went through the stages, this will be the last stage where we would realize that our differences need to be talked about. We need to come up to some sort of conclusion or mutual agreement between the three of us. And here's where there's a lot of teamwork and forgiveness and kindness. And we eventually come to the realization, and we get success out of it because we are able to do our project. So next slide. So let's talk community development. Communities are always changing. They do not ever remain the same. There are new members always joining, and other members who have contributed greatly to the community eventually retire or leave. This causes new levels or types of conflict to arise amongst one another. A community must recognize when rebuilding the community needs to occur. This may need to be practiced constantly depending on the community members. And moving on to the next slide. Right, here is where community building principles come into play. So there was a man by the name of Goody Const. He was a professor of speech communication at a college in California, and he studied intercultural communications. According to him, there are 7 principles to effective community building that members should adapt in order to gain community stability. So, 1, we have commitment. Commitment is putting in the extra effort and being dedicated to resolving issues and talking to your colleagues and getting the task done. Secondly, we have mindful thinking. Being mindful in the things that you say and examine your own behavior before looking at others. So watch the way how you talk to others. Think about what you are going to say before you say it. Just simple little things like mindful thinking. Number 3, we have unconditionally accepting. So being unconditionally accepting is where accepting individuals as they are and not try to change them, nor their ideas or opinions. So do not shut them down and make them feel like their opinion or their idea do not matter, because all opinions and all ideas in a group does matter. Do not make them feel like their opinions is not um is not just as good as yours. 4, we have concern for both yourself and others. Being concerned for yourself and others is like having genuine conversation with others and being open to their opinions. So understanding others, listening to what they have to say, you will get the same in return. Number 6, number 5, we have understanding, a sense of understanding, trying to understand others as a whole. Sit down with them, have a conversation, talk to them, understand where um, what is the task, what needs to get done. Just the genuine communication and conversation is what is best for the sense of understanding. Number 6, we have being ethical. Engaging in ethical behavior that supports moral principles and not engaging in behavior that supports negativity and have no form of moral principles. Number 7, we have peaceful acts. Being peaceful, do not show or commit any form of ignorance or violence. Do not be disrespectful to their person and their opinions. Try to be more mindful, be more respectful, and keep the peace. So those are the 7 community building principles that try to create effective community members. So they eventually have to practice, adapt, and be effective. And these are the 7 principles. Next slide, please. So here we have relational leadership. So just to touch on this, because we did mention this before, I believe in chapter 3. So relational leadership is a process where individuals join together to accomplish change and make a difference to benefit a solution. We have teamwork here. So we have leaders and we have their team members, right? So this is where we need to understand individuals, help them become their best version of themselves, building trust between our leaders and our team members, and providing individuals with opportunities to flourish. Next slide, please. So we will touch briefly on how relational leadership connects to the elements of the community and the stages of the community. So as we mentioned in chapter 3, we have 5 components of relational leadership. We have inclusive, empowering, ethical, purposeful, oriented. And these are directly related to the principles and the stages of the community. So first we have inclusive. Here's where the relational leaders, have a sense of belonging or diversity. So it is directly connected to incorporating diversity that we have in elements of the community. We have links with the outside world. It is also related to being committed and unconditionally accepting. Second, we have empowering, where our relational leaders trust the employees to work independently and they have some sort of group maintenance and shared culture. So when we have new members enter the group now, we show them a sense of understanding, show them a sense of concern for both yourself and others. We don't treat them a different way. We try to show empowerment that they can get the task done independently. Thirdly, we have ethical, where here we have to be honest. We have to create strong relationships. Here's where teamwork comes into play between our relational leaders and our team members. We show care, we show teamwork in order to get the work done, and basically being ethical, showing some sort of moral values. Fourth, we have purposeful. Purposeful is where the relational leaders have a personal sense of purpose to guide their team. So we have shared leadership tasks and participating. These are where we have everyone participates and everyone comes together. So just like the relational leaders, and we have the members of the community, we work together and we share the task. Everyone is participating. Everyone shows a certain purpose in the community. So last component, we have process oriented. Here's where the aim is to achieve results without sacrificing anyone's well-being. So good communication, being mindful in the things that we say and what we do and how we come about, how we resolve the issue basically. Being peaceful, um, do not show any ignorance, do not show any disrespect, any form of disrespect. This is where good communication makes a good process, and um, the situation will be successful, and we'll have true community here. So here's where the relational leadership components are connected to the elements and stages of community. Next slide, please. Next slide, Denise. Okay, yeah. Okay, here we'll talk a little bit about college communities. So for many years, college campuses have been viewed as living communities and well-rounded communities of scholars. However, this is not so in reality, and many individuals may have shared emotions or different views on this topic. Um, a college basically, we have COSTAT and we have the University of the West Indies, all these other colleges, and we have different campuses, right? So different organizations. Um, and the different campuses we have from the outside world, if you don't know, they may view a college as a whole. They may view us as a true sense of community, where in most cases this is not so. A lot of things happen in college communities that show that we do not have a sense of true community. So, for example, we have hate crimes, right? That usually happens on campus. Hate crimes, hate crimes where we target people. There's a lot of people who get targeted because of their race, because of their color, because of their sexuality or their gender, and many other um instances. So hate crimes do happen, and this does not show a true sense of community. We have incivility, lacking manners or showing disrespect, um, throwing rude or offensive comments at each other. There's a lot of this that goes on in college communities. Thirdly, we have devaluing of other organizations. So, in the college, we have different faculties or different departments. So, for example, myself, before I came to COSTAT, I did a degree at the University of the West Indies. And I can assure you that um, it's like a whole different um, it's a whole different environment compared to COSTAT, right? I mean, University of the West Indies, there's a lot of students there, and there's a lot of different faculties. So my faculty, I was in the Faculty of Science and Technology. So there were other faculties, especially Faculty of Medical Sciences and one or two other stuff that I don't want to call names for, and they do devalue other faculties. They look down on them, like they are not on their level, and it shows a lot, and even devaluing of other organizations sometimes happens in the dorms. So there used to be, I think it's still, yeah, it still exists, but we have different dorms on the campuses, and they would show disrespect, or they would look down on other dorms, and they would show a form, like they would feel like they are entitled to more amenities, or they have more values, or probably because one of the dorms or the halls probably more expensive than the other. I don't know, but there's a lot of devaluing that comes into colleges. And lastly, people don't care. People don't care to learn about others. They don't care to learn about your personality, your characteristics, what type of person you are. They don't care to show genuine concern about, even if you have a problem, they don't care. They show no sense of concern. So this is just a breakdown of some of the things that do happen on college communities that shows no sense of true community. Moving on to the next slide, please. Right, so here we just have a brief study on the college campuses. So in the text, they stated that the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching in 1990, they conducted a study or a survey on what the students and staff would like to change about their different campuses. And believe it or not, all the groups voted for a new sense of community. As mentioned in the previous slide, where we have all these different situations that do arise that leads to the community being underdeveloped, they wanted a new sense of community. So not going back to any old models, not going back to any previous principles. They wanted new principles and they wanted new acts and something that is updated, something that would grasp the attentions of um, the students and the staff and everything college, right? So the foundation went on to promote the importance of healthy community colleges and stages in the community building. Next slide, please. Right, so we'll talk about different organizations and community development. So different organizations or groups have different objectives and goals to focus on. Hence, they all have different elements that they may need to strengthen or put emphasis on. So, for example, we have education communities, right? We have institutions, we have learning campuses, right? So their goal, they would focus mainly on learning, um, gaining scholarship, probably student development, depending on what the level of education community it is, and so on. Another example, we have a sports team. They may emphasize or focus more on teamwork, competency, dedication, attention span, adrenaline, all those sorts of things sports-wise. We also have social organizations where the main goal in the community could probably be creating new friendships or building trust with one another and having that mutual bond. And this is basically the different organizations where we all have different tasks or different goals in our own community development. So intentionally adapting and practicing the discipline of true community, positive outcomes may be reaped. However, it always starts with oneself. So it starts with us first. Commitment to developing and growing in our own community is just a small fractal development of larger communities. So community development starts within ourselves. The four stages of community development that we learned and the seven principles of community development that we learned. We as individuals, we should learn to adapt and be the better versions of ourselves. And we are all in communities, no matter if it's on first class, we are as a community here. Our groups, we are community there as well. When we are home, sometimes in our relationships, our personal lives, we all have communities that we are part of, and it just starts with ourselves. So this will lead to a small fraction to a bigger and larger community. Just be the best version of ourselves. So next slide, please. Right, so I'll now hand you over to Denise to do the summary. Denise?
So I apologize on behalf of Denise. I believe her mic is giving a little trouble there. So could you hold a few seconds while she sorts it out? Thanks.
Okay, so my colleague's mic, Denise, is not working properly, so I will do the summary. So the summary and overview of the chapter. This chapter emphasized the importance of understanding and cultivating communities within various contexts, particularly in the realm of relational leadership. It began with a scenario illustrating the caring and supportive nature of a community, highlighting how Denise's absence was noted and her well-being was checked upon. The text then dwells into the concept of community, emphasizing its significance in leadership and the need for individuals to view their groups as communities. It discusses the nature of communities, principles of community development, and the role of active participation within communities of practice. The chapter underscores the transformative potential of embracing relational leadership principles and envisioning group contexts as healthy communities, fostering effective collaboration and shared leadership. Through, through reflection on personal experiences, readers are prompted to recognize the value of meaningful communities and the importance of nurturing supportive environments for individual and collective growth. Next slide. Right, so here we just have the references, and I believe that is the end of our, yes, that is the end of our presentation. So on behalf of myself, Denise and Paige, thank you for listening to our presentation, and this is the end of chapter 9.